Every year since 1989, the Library of Congress has selected 25 films to add to the National Film Registry. The criteria? The films must be culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant.
Each week on You're Missing Out, we take a look at one of these films to try and get to the heart of why they were selected and why they still matter.
This week, Ryan Luis Rodriguez is back on the show for 1940's The Bank Dick.
Our guest today is the host of One Track Mind and Reels of Justice. Ryan Luis Rodriguez returns to the show to talk about The Bank Dick. Ryan, what do you see? What do you say?
I'm not even going to try to follow that up. That was well done, sir. But thank you for having me back despite how terribly I did the last time.
You did not.
So either you guys made a big mistake or you're very generous. I don't know which.
Well, listen. What did you do last time? I don't remember.
I was about to say Tom doesn't remember what happened.
No, because at this point, honestly, the only ones I remember are bad episodes where I have to tell Mike, we're not having this person back. So the fact that I don't remember is counterproductively a good thing. So what did we have him on last time?
Baby,
for?
Season 2, right?
Oh, yeah. Of course. Yeah, that was a good episode. I like that.
Absolutely. I don't know why you're saying it went poorly. I know. Right. If something went badly, that would be like if somebody went on a different show, like, I don't know, one of your podcasts, and due to a mix of getting 2 vaccines back to back, blacked out in the middle of an episode and doesn't remember recording some of it. That would be a bad performance. But thankfully...
No, you say that, but that was one of our best episodes. You were a fucking rock star on that episode. Until you told me that that's what happened, I could not have told. I would not have possibly known that. You were fucking amazing on that episode.
For context, for anybody listening, and for Tom, I've done Reels of Justice 3 times now, and I've won once, and I'm proud of that. I could not successfully defend Wild Wild West, did successfully defend The Lone Ranger, much to Ryan's chagrin. And then...
Hey, I gave it 2.5 stars. I'm okay. I'm kind of in your camp on that one.
And then I was on for the Tom Cruise Mummy. And but I had gotten my COVID booster and my flu shot back-to-back earlier that day. And just completely lost consciousness during that episode. Like, I talked the whole time, but I was just, like, in a daze. The thing I do remember doing is I did perform a parody of Steve Martin's King Tut, entirely about Tom Cruise.
That was the highlight of the entire episode. That's one of our best bits that we've ever had. And like Rob, every single time he gets a chance, he will sing. And it's always painful. But my God, I was not expecting the King Tut parody. And oh God, was that great. You totally saved that entire episode with that.
I'll just say, Ryan, there is another potential bit similar to that in the back of my mind if I am ever called up for a certain title I've requested many times. That's all I'm going to say right now publicly.
Oh, you're coming back. I'm guaranteed you're coming back. If I have anything to say about it, which I don't, you're coming back.
And I'm also coming back. In fact, I don't know what our release schedule is going to be, which is coming out first. I will be on One Track Mind again. Yes. I was on it once, and this time I will be on it for a movie I like. I was on it before for Donnie Darko, talking about the most disastrous commentary track.
Director's
of all
cut.
time.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yes, a commentary.
But at least we had fun discussing it. That's the good part.
Yeah, we did. And a classic example of my appearance on one of your shows, which is beforehand you go, all right, here's the time limit, and I blow right past it. I just say no. We're gonna talk about things that are not on topic at all. I think we started talking about like District 9 at one point. Like,
we did. We got into Blomkamp big time. Oh yeah, the rise and fall of Neil Blomkamp.
Yeah. So, but I will be on soon. I think we're recording it later this week, coming up
on Tuesday.
Yes, on Batman Forever.
A movie that means a lot to me personally, so this might just turn into a love fest. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, it's
the worst Batman movie. Good job.
What?
No, are you kidding me? The worst.
You're going to say Batman Forever is worse than Batman and Robin?
Yeah.
You're a psychopath.
That's insane.
It's boring.
That's
It's boring.
You're a
insane.
contrarian.
You're crazy. You're crazy.
No, I am not a fucking contrarian. It's boring. That's the biggest sin you could be. It's boring.
Oh.
Batman and Robin is at least like huffing bath salts and running around at fucking like a pride parade.
It's okay. Nevertheless,
and this is why I'm never going to be on any of their shows.
Oh, that's what's nice is, I think, Tom, like I said, I've been on Ryan's shows and he's had to edit some things down because I go over for time. If Ryan has you on, he'll also have to edit things down, but not because of time constraints. Just because of content concerns.
I'm just sitting there recording, making my notes. Can't say that. No, sorry, not that one. No, definitely not.
Tom just gets an email. I had to cut some things because it turns out that's illegal to say. I didn't even know we had those laws, but apparently some of those things are federal crimes.
Yeah. You were so bad that they brought back the fairness doctrine.
Oh, my goodness. Well, let's get off of that topic and talk about somebody who never had a contentious relationship with censors, Mr. W.C. Fields. Ryan, when I reached out to you, we talked about a couple things. One of the things that I enjoy when we talk about movies, on whatever show is the fact that similar to us, you do go deep into film history. You are very interested. You'll watch anything, and you are very interested in kind of like how did this whole medium that we enjoy come together. So when I reached out to you, we went back and forth about a couple titles, and the funny thing is, I sent over the list of open titles, and truth be told, we've been sending out the list to people, and nobody even looks a second glance at the bank dick. Right? I feel like a lot of people kind of were just like, well, that's not one of the big and shiny. I don't know what that is. I don't know who that is, anything like that. But when I sent it to you, you went, oh, the bank dick, please. So what was it about, what was it about that title stakeout? Was it a case of, were you familiar with W.C. Fields and that's what drew you to it? Or were you unfamiliar with Fields' work and that's what made you want to check it out? What was it about that jumped out to you?
Well, I've been wanting to talk about W.C. Fields on a podcast for quite some time. I had seen this movie, I think, during the pandemic. Right when the pandemic started, I got the out-of-print Criterion DVD.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was so enamored with it that I started going to the library once libraries reopened and started getting all the W.C. Fields movies that I could find. And the one that really connected with me was It's a Gift. Like if It's a Gift was done instead of the bank dick on the National Film Registry, I would have run to that even faster than I ran to this movie.
It's in there, by the way.
It is? Okay,
so
well,
It's a Gift.
Eventually I got to come back and do that.
It's a Gift gets in, and I think the other one is So's Your Old Man. I think those are the three Fieldses that are in the registry at present.
Oh, nice.
I believe those are the ones, yeah.
But yeah, so I'm a big fan of the Fields shtick. I love the persona that he had as a performer. And what I love about him the most is that he's not a polished performer. Mm-hmm. He's not somebody who seems like he sits there and goes over the lines 10, 12 times until he's got them perfect. Like, he will stumble over himself in scenes. Mm-hmm. And the camera will just keep rolling, and the director's like, this is the best we're going to get. Just keep going, people. Keep going. And it is so endearing. And just the fact that a guy this frumpy and terrible looking was one of the hottest box office stars in America is shocking to me. And it makes me want to go back to the 1940s when things were interesting.
Well, I mean, it's so... I mean, Tom, what was your familiarity? Because I know you hadn't seen this until this podcast, but what was your familiarity with W.C. Fields prior to this whole endeavor?
None at all. The name was familiar. I'm sure I've heard it, but I didn't have any context for the name. Didn't know what I was getting myself into with this movie. Like I say all the time, when we get one of these movies that I don't know anything about, I keep it that way until I watch it for the first time, just to let it happen to me. And
so you can marinate it in real time.
Yeah, so get kind of like, that experience we rarely get anymore as film people. Like I knew, like I saw Abigail and The First Omen yesterday, and it's like, all right, I know what these are, and they're good. And The First Omen was really good, but I'm like, all right, I saw the trailers, I kind of knew what I was getting into. But you don't really kind of get that sensation anymore, especially for us, social media savvy, film Twitter people, whatever, what have you. We go to movies, we see the trailers. And I was like, oh, it's like a slapstick, dopey fucking comedy. This is great. And had no idea what his persona was. And the second he strolls onto screen, as his mother is yelling at him for smoking in the house, and he puts the cigarette in his mouth so she doesn't see. And then the daughter hits him, and the cigarette pops out, and then he's about to throw a flower pot at her. And I'm just like, okay, listen, you know what? This is my guy. I already know that this is my dude, and I really, really, really cannot wait to get more into this guy's stuff, because drunk fat shithead is absolutely my kind of fucking humor. I love this.
So were you? So you say you didn't know what his archetype was, but surely you've seen like this character parody. I mean, like we talk a lot. We talked about it with Maurice Chevalier for Love Me Tonight a couple seasons ago, and obviously, Tom, you and I were talking about it with Peter Lorre and other people on other episodes. Like a lot of our first exposure to the comedic personas or even the dramatic personas of old Hollywood come from Disney or Looney Tunes cartoons parodying them. Right?
Especially Looney Tunes. He was in Looney Tunes all the time.
All the time.
Constantly.
Yeah.
So I must have seen it because I watched a lot of Looney Tunes as a kid. Didn't really put it together until you sent me the wiki of him, of his character.
There was because there was a Looney Tunes character that was W.C. Squeals, which is a pig, so, yeah. W.C. Fields.
Which is, got to give him credit. Didn't have to stretch too hard with that one. Sometimes the easiest bit's the best bit.
And the original Elmer Fudd looks shockingly like W.C. Fields.
Yeah.
Egghead, I believe his original name was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, like I must have, but it never connected, and it was just never a thing that I ever went back to. And we talk about this all the time about old movies. Like unless you really have somebody kind of putting it in your ear, or not even a lot of podcasts talk about movies this old, especially comedies this old. So I just really didn't, have it in the old dome here, and it's a shame. I think this kind of thing would work pretty well today, if only because the main comedies we've really had the last 15, 20 years have been like the Seth Rogens and Danny McBrides of just like, oh, here's fat, like inebriated dipshits just being dipshits but lovable. McBride probably has the darker side that Fields trades in, which is just, oh, he's gonna beat up a kid. He convinces his dipshit future son-in-law to rob a bank.
There's a world. Were he alive today, there is a world where you bring in W.C. Fields to be John Goodman's father on The Righteous Gemstones. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, father, that would
that's
be
what I'm saying, right?
Amazing.
Like there is a world where that's the lineage. So the reason I asked you about the Looney Tunes thing, Tom, is that I was very familiar with W.C. Fields as a concept long before I ever saw a movie of his, right? Because I do feel like one of those things is that our parents' generation inherited a lot of the older comedy films, right? Like I talk about this with my dad a lot, that like my dad had seen a lot of the old things, like whether it's Laurel and Hardy or W.C. Fields, Mae West, any of these things, because while my grandparents would have seen it in theaters, right, or in re-releases, whatever, in the early days of television, when they had nothing to run, they would run these old comedies, right? That's the reason that like baby boomers have such a deep bench knowledge of like The Little Rascals or Abbott and Costello, right? Like when I was growing up, my dad knew some of those bits so well that I had it in my head that Abbott and Costello came out in the 60s, right? Just because it was like he knew them so well. No, they aired on TV, right?
And they would play them in the afternoon, like right after school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Like,
that's prime time for a kid to get into those movies.
the perfect
Absolutely.
example of that, and it translates to us because, you know, how often when you were a kid and you were watching TV, we all know it is burned into our brains. On this call, it's entirely possible. I think I've seen like 2, but it's entirely possible that nobody on this call, except me, has seen a Shirley Temple movie, right? It's not like we're seeking them out. And yet
No.
all of us, in the back of our brains, like a war flashback, remember that one infomercial for the collection of Shirley Temple
Oh, yeah.
movies now on DVD.
Oh, yeah.
The
Yep.
Shirley
The Time
Temple
Life commercials.
Time
Oh
Life,
god,
yes.
we need to go back to those. Yeah.
Time Life presents the Shirley Temple collection, now available on however many discs. Animal crackers in my soup. Like, you just, it's
Don't
burned into
ever
your
do that.
brain.
Don't,
And they would have
don't do
everything
that.
from Shirley Temple to Beavis and Butthead.
Yes,
They covered
yes.
the gamut.
Yeah, but it would be these old things. So, like, Shirley Temple's one of those. And the other element, too, and I don't know how much you vibe with this, Ryan. I know Tom will go, but, like, I talk about it all the time. In the 90s, especially when they were building these, like, movie-themed theme parks and the magic of the movies and all of that, like, you could go down to Universal Orlando and they had walk-around Mae West and W.C. Fields.
Right.
Like, that was a thing that they had. So
I got their autographs back in my... I don't know where my autograph book is, but I got all of their autographs. and they were always outside the Lucy, the Experience.
Lucy, a tribute. Please,
a tribute,
let's call
right,
it.
Sorry. I got the experience part right. Oh
No,
my god,
I think
what a tragedy.
I may be wrong. It might have been the Alfred Hitchcock Experience. I don't remember. There was an Alfred Hitchcock.
I think you're right.
Or Hitchcock. It was Hitchcock, The Art of Suspense, something. There was
The Art of Making Movies.
There we go.
Like
yeah, something like that. There was then there was the Murder, She Wrote show. It's no.
Please kill me.
No, I think the thing you don't realize, Tom, is that when Universal Orlando first opened, they had the bold idea of, what if there are almost no rides, and what if instead we just have walkthroughs of things that only appeal to baby boomers? And the only thing, if you're a kid in like the late 80s, early 90s, is there's one Ghostbusters show, and also the Blues Brothers will do a dance at one point. And that's all you got.
That Ghostbusters show was awesome.
That goes.
It was only open for like 6 years, but man, when the smell of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man when they roast him alive, outstanding.
See, that's shit I wish I got to when I was a kid, but because we were poor guineas that didn't spend money on anything, I missed it. We went to Universal in 2001. It was gone by then, and I was not happy at all that whole trip.
Well, we all know.
I wanted to see the Ghostbusters when it was around.
And famously,
Spooktacular, wasn't that what it was?
And then there was Beetlejuice's Graveyard Review that had Beetlejuice with all the Universal monsters.
And then he used to host the Halloween Horror Nights thing until they replaced him with Bill and Ted. You know, those horror icons, Bill and Ted.
Okay, we will get back to W.C. Fields, but I have to ask Tom, do you know about the Bill and Ted's Halloween show?
No.
Okay.
No.
All I'm going to tell you is it ran for decades. It was like an improvised comedy show, and every year they would change it to make pop culture references, and it eventually got canceled because, and this is not a joke, it was too offensive.
What?
I'm Tom.
Very true. Very true.
Shockingly so. Like, in, what was it, like 2014, like an article came and went, do you guys know there's this really racist, homophobic show running in Universal Orlando on Halloween?
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's insane.
And just admit, this sounds crazy. It sounds crazy, but watching it is even crazier. You would not think that would be true, but it is not hyperbole.
Right.
It is insane.
Are there like videos of this on YouTube?
Yes.
Because that's like the only like themed park thing I'd actually want to watch.
Hey Tom, what if I told you that one of the things that got them in trouble was that they had a scene that implied that Wreck-It Ralph was going to... Wreck-It Ralph picked up an unconscious Nicki Minaj, slung her over his shoulder, looked at the audience and went, I'm gonna wreck it, and then dragged her off stage.
No. I mean, it's better than what I assumed you were going, where you said Wreck-It Ralph, and I'm like, oh no, they're going to do something to Vanellope? And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, I'm not, okay, whatever. I guess they're bringing Beetlejuice back.
Now, mind you, by the way, in California, all of this takes place on a stage usually used for a Waterworld stunt show that is still running to this day.
Or I guess if it's Universal, they're going to pick, like, random fucking characters that are out of date and also not fitting. So, like, what, like McBride and Franco's characters from Your Highness?
You
just made a more interesting show right now. You just created something here.
Oh no, we replaced two characters that say the F slur with two different characters that also use that slur. What have we done? But anyway, walk around W.C. Fields, who was not using slurs in Universal Orlando. I can't say that was the case for all of his movies, as I learned going through some of that filmography. But hey, it was the 30s. W.C. Fields. So I'm saying I was familiar with W.C. Fields' persona well before I saw Fields. I started watching Fields. It's funny, Ryan, you mentioned the Criterion of the Bank Dick, right? Two of the earliest Criterion releases were the Bank Dick and also a collection of 6 W.C. Fields shorts.
Yes. And I never got that one, and I was so sad because I want it so bad right now.
I don't have the Criterion of it, but sometime around like 2018, I would say, I was curious about it because I was like, that's so interesting, W.C. Fields. So I ended up just finding the list of the shorts and watching all of his shorts, right? And those cracked me up. So then I sought out the Bank Dick and, have slowly worked my way through the rest of his filmography as best I can. I saw that David Copperfield, he did things like that. But what did strike me because I've just kind of always had the W.C. Fields persona in mind. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where, and I don't think, as Tom acknowledged, his films aren't really talked about in that way today or seen that way, but I just had that, like, the expression of, like, well, my little chickadee. I've heard it done in so many cartoons. I've seen it done so many times that I didn't,
It's weird that they're not talked about more. You know what? Like, because they do feel a little more, I guess, modern because he is, like, drunk. They're not, like, hiding it from the censors where they have to, like, use euphemisms. Like, he's drunk. He's having his stupid son-in-law commit crimes. He's drugging the bank accountant. Like, they're doing some, like, wild shit that feels like this doesn't feel like what you think a comedy from that time would be. It doesn't feel
transgressive.
Sweet. Yeah, it's not sweet. It's not, like, childish. Because, like, Abbott and Costello has a little edge to it, but it's still like, oh, well, what if a big idiot child had, like, a mean dad? And you're just like, well, they're not drinking, they're not screwing around. It's like, okay, this is like it feels like you could actually show this to someone today and they wouldn't be like, oh, this is outdated, or whatever. I mean, that's just my opinion.
But
they're getting away with something there.
Yeah, it feels like they're getting away with something. That's the thing,
But I would counter the one thing about that is, the films, it's an interesting thing because the films his humor is weird, right? Like, we can obviously laugh at, some of the broader stuff, but, like, some of the humor is, I don't want to call it alt comedy because that's certainly not what it is by today's definition, right? But it is absurdist in a way that, like, some of the humor in his movies are just naming a character A. Pismo Clam. And there's no...
Or J. Pinkerton Snoopington.
Snoopington, right. Or even, like, the joke, so the film, we'll get into it more, but, like, W.C. Fields wrote this movie, but he didn't want his name for the writing credit. Instead, it's credited to Mahatma Cain Jeeves. Why? Because if you say it fast, it sounds like, my hat, my cane, Jeeves, which is like an old vaudeville joke. Just like asking your butler for a cane. But, like, that kind of silly shit, like weird shit. We'll even get into it. We'll talk about the registry statement in a second, but, like, even the registry statement is like, it's an acquired taste. So even in the 90s, they were saying that. The thing that I find most fascinating is that Fields, we're talking about Fields falling out of favor now. He had fallen out of favor by the 50s. his films were out of fashion. They weren't considered funny. I found out later he got a revival after his death on college campuses in the 60s and especially the 70s. They would get a hold of these prints and they would screen them. And they played like gangbusters to stoned college kids.
I 100% believe that. This, Belushi loves this shit, right?
These are proto-stoner comedies, right?
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, and especially consider, obviously, alcohol was legal at the time, but only barely. This movie comes out in 1940. Prohibition's repealed in 1933, right?
Yeah.
So, the booze company and Fields, that was always his thing because, they make a lot of jokes about his nose and being flushed and red from booze. That's all just him. That's just how he was.
And that nose, imagine if you had to share some Coke with W.C. Fields. You would never get a hand on it. Not at all. He would hoover that thing up immediately.
Well, cut 2 lines for me and 2 more lines for me. It's, I feel like I'm, fuck it. I'm flying out to LA. I'm taking general meetings on my pitch for Cocaine W.C. Fields.
Just wait for the Josh Gad directed biopic about W.C. Fields.
It's just Scarface, but with W.C. Fields in. I was gonna say the lead role, but no, he should be the Robert Loggia, right?
Sailor my little chickadee.
No, I'm just picturing him in the Robert Loggia role. just the rest of it. It's still Pacino and it's still De Palma intense, but occasionally just. Well, you see, they're gonna throw him out the helicopter. Look at that, a little bird.
The other guy's greed. See?
What about the Scotia brothers? What about Casper Diaz?
You fucking little monkey. Yeah.
See,
you need that movie now.
You both said you wouldn't do a Fields impression, but neither of you could pass up the opportunity to put W.C. Fields in crime dramas. You just can't do it.
Fuck Casper Gomez, see? Now I'm just doing Cagney. This is what you get when you drink and don't sleep ever.
Which is you also get the bank dick.
I'm saying, if there's some weird math where it takes your spirit 40, 50 years to get into a new body, I think I am just W.C. Fields.
But yeah, so he saw a revival on college campuses, right? Amongst the stoner comedy clique. I do think there is something about it's almost, there's I guess there's in humor there's more divisions than this, but there's clever comedy and then there's silly broad comedy, right? Mm-hmm. We just did Annie Hall on the show. Very cerebral humor. That's Woody Allen's thing, right? It's very, very cerebral humor. This, W.C. Fields is kind of more, and I don't want to say silly as in goofy, but just more almost on a especially pre-Rick and Morty Adult Swim level, right? In its own way, the stuff that happens in The Bank Dick, you can draw a line from the absurd humor of The Bank Dick all the way through to Aqua Teen Hunger Force's The Dickisode, right? If just for the fact that both of those things bring Tom and I to tears when we watch them. Just
the funniest fucking shit in the world. Oh my god. We're not getting lost down that rabbit hole. Continue.
We can. Other than the fact that how they say inside,
we're not going to dick around tonight.
I'm just going to say, how they say inside each man there are 2 wolves. In Tom, those 2 wolves are apparently W.C. Fields and Carl from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. That's it. Those are the 2 pulling the string.
Honestly, there's a direct line from W.C. Fields to Carl. I'm just going to say it. I think there's a direct line comedically from those 2 just glorious shitheads. I mean, my heroes.
Had he lived, eventually W.C. Fields would have made a movie where he's haunted by the ghost of Bart Oates. It would have happened. Eventually, it would have happened. Could you? I'm just imagining. Here's what I'm going to say. We actually have a fair number of like Gen Z listeners, and if we hadn't lost them talking about Time Life commercials for Shirley Temple, we've absolutely lost them talking about Bart Oates and
How do
Aqua
we
Teen
have
Hunger.
Gen Z listeners?
Man,
What are these kids doing? Go have sex.
You know that drugs
What?
exist, right, kids? Like,
Yeah, like
they're out there.
you
You can get them really cheap too.
and then you can do some drugs, do some whippets or whatever, and just fuck behind the local watering hole. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't follow us. This is the wrong path.
Just because you can get it on your phone doesn't mean you should, kids.
Risk a fentanyl overdose. Don't listen to us.
Hey, Ryan, a thing you don't know is that we just had a whole talk with Tom last week about things that can get us demonetized on YouTube.
What? I'm not smoking.
You just told people to overdose on fentanyl.
No, I said risk it. I'm not saying they should do it. I'm just saying it's a better thing to do, risking it, than listening to us. I don't want them to die. I'm just saying, if you put it on the scales of the universe, morally, and just for their own growth as humans, it's better to roll those dice than to listen to this fucking bullshit. I'm just a guy with an opinion. What can I say?
So before we get demonetized any further, let's hear what the Library of Congress had to say about the bank dick. Here's what the National Film Registry had to say.
Perhaps more than any other film comedian in the early days of movies, W.C. Fields is an acquired taste. His absurdist brand of humor, at once dry and surreal, endures for the simple reason that the movies bear up under repeated viewings. In fact, it's almost a necessity to watch them over and over, if only to figure out why they're so funny. In his second-to-last feature, The Bank Dick, which he wrote under the moniker Mahatma Cain Jeeves, Field, as an unemployed layabout, Egbert Susse, if you don't mind, replaces drunk movie director A. Pismo Clam on a location shoot in his hometown of Lompoc, California, before chance lands him in the job of bank detective, after which the movie becomes a riff on the comedic possibilities of his newfound notoriety. The stellar comic supporting cast includes future stooge Shemp Howard as the bartender at Fields' regular haunt, the Black Pussy, and Preston Sturges' regular Franklin Pangborn as bank examiner J. Pinkerton Snoopington.
You know, Tom, sometimes on this show we talk about registry statements that seem like they don't like the movie. This is the only registry statement that feels like it doesn't get the movie. Because the opening line is just like, W.C. Fields is an acquired taste. You actually have to watch the movies over and over, if only to figure out why they're so funny. It's like, it almost feels like this was an assignment that got tossed someone's way. And they were just like,
or that they wrote it about Freddy Got Fingered and then immediately crossed out the title. No, actually, no one's going to read this. You know what? The Bank Dick. There you go. Sure, why not?
Daddy, would you like some sausage? I'd watch it. Again, I would watch it. I'm the backwoods man. Again, I'd watch it.
I would agree with your assessment of the statement if I didn't just disassociate while it was playing. So I'll take your word for it.
It's a very particular thing, but I'm
kidding. I did. Just right off the bat, just the kind of humor that this movie's playing in. Egbert Susse, or Egbert Souse.
Yeah.
AKA Fat Drunk.
Yeah.
Come on. What are we even doing here? This is great. This is all. Why are we not? Why is there not a long lineages of just Egbert Susses in comedies? Every 30 years, there's just a new Egbert Susse. Chris Farley could have done it.
Yeah.
Would have loved that. Belushi basically did his entire career doing Egbert Susse. Love it. Need it back.
It's so funny. One of the very first things one of the very first things that I wrote down in my notes is just it's amazing how much his wife fucking hates him. It's
so
so
fucking funny.
It is so funny how much his family hates him.
She at best is apathetic towards him. That is the most positive feelings she portrays towards him, just apathy. And then just outright rage and don't you dare hit my fucking child.
He's Job if Job hated himself.
It's, oh my God. So it's one of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say this. Does this movie have that thing that, Tom, you and I talk about older comedies on the show sometimes, where it's just like the comedian at the center of it had ideas for fun bits, and that's just going to be the movie. You know, like the Marx Brothers do that. Chaplin and Keaton can do that. Of just like, the very fact that the movie is just like, what if for 15 minutes I just become a movie director?
I mean, that's
incredible.
one of the funniest things too, is because I knew nothing about it, and he becomes a film director. I'm like, wait, what? This movie's called what? When's a bank going to come into play in this movie? I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And but yeah, no, it all feels just like bits and just like, oh, we'll do funny things. But I do love that it almost feels like at the end he's just like, we did all these funny bits. Wouldn't it be funny if all of the prior bits converge at the end just to give me money?
Yeah.
Just like, oh yeah, just guys, drunk louse idiot makes no money, just spends $20, which is what you said, like $360 in American money at bars every night.
Yes, it's one of the best lines in the film. And one
so
of the
funny.
off-quoted is, was I in here last night and did I spend a $20 bill? Yes. Oh, that's a load off my mind. I thought I'd lost it. And as I said to Tom, counting for inflation, that's in today's money $320. The implication of this bit in its day is that he walked into this bar, spent $320 on liquor in a single night, and is fine with it. He's relieved
And you know what?
to discover.
And you know what? To even counter that with other inflation things, the money that they were spending on alcohol back then, percentage-wise, with money and how much you were getting, not the same as today. You were getting more bang for your buck back then. That guy spent probably roughly the equivalent of $800 of today's money on what booze would be.
And none of it was drinks on the house. It was all drinks for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my, it's so the fact that this guy, just every single body converges just to give him so much money that he can now afford a giant palatial mansion. It's just so, and everybody in his world changes because he now finally gave them money.
It's so good.
And it's
such a
but
good
he still runs after Shemp to go to the bar first thing in the morning, which I'm not gonna lie, if I ever get money, I'm gonna do exactly the same. I'm gonna look nice, I'm gonna have a nice house, but I'm running straight for the bar.
Well,
and
Tom,
being a shithead.
Tom, in fairness, even if you didn't drink, if Shemp from the Three Stooges was going somewhere, you'd chase after him regardless.
Oh yeah, please, Shemp, hit me. It'll be a different tone of when I say that to girls at bars. Oh, please hit me. But I'd still ask somebody at the bar to hit me. But it would be for the yucks.
And it would be for the nyuck-nyucks.
Hey, listen, that's why you're you, buddy.
I mentioned comedies of that time. It is worth noting the director of this film, Edward F. Klein.
Yeah, Buster Keaton's co-director.
Did some of the best Keaton's, like 1 Week Cops, The High Sign, and did Keaton's first feature, The Three Ages.
Yeah.
Yep. And the other thing that makes this one interesting and distinct in its time is that this was, Fields had made other films for Universal. We alluded before to My Little Chickadee, and he did some other films for Universal that were all two-handers. It was pairing him up with Mae West or pairing him up with Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. But he had done a couple of successful films for them. You Can't Cheat an Honest Man and My Little Chickadee. And those did well enough, and they were received well enough, even in early stages, that he was able to demand full creative control on this one, right? And The Bank Dick does stand out from his other comedies. If you look at, like, one I watched earlier was The Old-Fashioned Way, which is from, I think, 34, right? And it has the feel similar to those Marx Brothers comedies that come out of vaudeville. Because remember, in the early days of talkies, right? Because trust me, I watched some early talkies recently in prep for another episode we'll be doing down the line. Rough. A lot of early talkies are rough. They're just wide shots in a room of people winging it with dialogue. So in the early days of talkies, it was like, okay, who's got a vaudeville show that we can translate to the screen? That's why those early Marx Brothers movies are so good. But, you watch those early Marx Brothers movies, and the Marx Brothers are side characters, right? There's always got to be a handsome romantic lead, and he's got to win some gal, right? The old-fashioned way is very much one of those, right? A lot of those early Fields comedies are that way. Fields is a father, and yes, he gets up to his business, but he's also got a young girl or a young niece or a young whatever, right? And there's a handsome boy, and there's going to be several points where they sing nice love songs. And with Fields having full creative control on the bank dick, you really feel him kind of go, not only am I not going to do a lot of the other crap that I've had to do in these movies, there's not going to be a song and dance sequence. I am going to be the main character. Not only that, I am going to take the character that is traditionally, in any other one of these movies would have been like a charming man we're trying to push as like a new leading man, and he's going to have a nice love song. And I'm just going to make him this poor, put-upon rube of a bank employee. He's not going to have anything positive to do. He's going to invest in a beefsteak mine because I tell him to. He's just a goof.
There's no fat to this. I mean, it's 71 minutes, for God's sake.
Yeah.
71 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
There is not a... This movie is lean. He is practicing comedic economy in this movie in a way that is outstanding. You can tell that Edward Klein was involved because he clearly, working with Keaton, he knew how to take something down to a bare essence. And I'm pretty sure that Fields probably saw those movies and said, that's the guy. He's the guy I can trust with this.
And it works. I mean, this movie is it's like you said, it's tight. It's just so funny. I mean, I really don't even, it's just every little bit. There's always like one little thing that he does that's so funny, or just like the names are funny, or, he takes a pratfall, or he makes like like when his little daughter at the beginning hits him with the bottle, and he just makes this like squeal, and you're just like, what? Like, this just, I mean, the fact that they even get meta and he pretends that he used to be a guy who directed Keaton pictures back in the day is just like, come on, that's funny. That's a good bit. And the fact that nobody really checks or cares, it's just like, whatever, our director's going on a 10-day bender. Oh, he got into a fight with his wife last night, and that usually leads to 10-day benders. And I'm like, oh, 10 days, interesting. And he's just immediately changes the movie. Oh, it's a carnival picture now.
And then
the only person who gets away with that now is Bryan Singer.
Yeah, but then it's like, oh, you're gonna play football and you're gonna kick the field goal, and it's like, in this outfit, oh, you change your hat.
It's
just like, come on, that's so. It's, and then just like, then it ends on a car chase, and it's so funny when the car starts breaking down, and the guy goes, oh, clean those windshield wipers. Takes it, you clean it, I'm driving. Or the wheels are coming off. He goes, give me that wheel. He just takes the steering wheel off. Here you go. It's like, come on, that's fucking funny. It's just funny.
I love this movie, and I love it even more hearing about what you liked about this movie.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, I told Mike before, the hardest I laughed in this movie, and probably with any filmed content I've watched in a while, is when the huckster comes back trying to buy the stocks back for less than what he originally paid for. Fields goes outside, sees the newspaper, immediately walks in and just punches him through the window. I'm just like, it's just funny. It's just, especially because, like, not to overanalyze, but the fact that he's been like this big talking but cowardly shithead the whole movie. But the second he realizes that he's gonna strike it rich with these stocks, he immediately punches someone through a fucking window. I mean, guys, that's cinema. That's comedy.
It's so. I mean, the other thing that I love about Fields that doesn't get talked about as much, Tom, you were saying like all of the little things that he does, right? When the registry statement is like, oh, repeat viewings, how it holds up. Part of that is because there are very big bits that are very funny in this movie. There are pratfalls, there are car chases, but then there's also just the thing of like Fields just finds certain words funny. We talked about the names, right? I texted you this, Tom, before that like for a couple of days now, I've just started chuckling to myself at the name Apismo Clam. But even more than that, like there'll be moments where he'll just be talking and just doing like the, oh, you ever go out? Do you ever do any boondoggling? You ever boondoggle? Do you boondoggle?
Your boondoggle.
Like he just likes, or I forget the exact phrasing, right? But when he's talking to the banker, the one that's interested in his daughter, and he's just listening, he's like, "You're not a this, you're not a that, you're not a that, are you? You're not a. I mean, yeah, that's not what you are you?" And he's just saying words. He's just using like nonsense words because he just.
It's
thinks
like
the words
in
are
It's a
funny.
Gift. They hit upon the word kumquats, and they say it 47 times in one 3-minute scene. And about 10 times into it, you're like, okay, this isn't really funny anymore. Then 30 times into it, you're like, you know what, fuck it, this is funny again. And then by the time it's done, you don't want them to say any other word.
Well, in My Little Chickadee, when he's talking to Mae West, he's like, "Yeah, yes, I acquired this brooch when I was in the the Himalayas," and he just can't. He keeps mispronouncing Himalayas.
Oh fuck! This guy is the best. I mean, he is just the absolute. I mean, when he's talking to the bed count, oh, do you have you're a married man? Oh, you have a daughter? I love little girls. How old is she? She's 18. Oh, I love little girls in the 18 to 21 range. I was like, come on, man. He's fucking like, I'm gonna fuck your daughter. Like, come on, that's so funny.
And the one, the point where he's doing the whatchamacallit, when he's talking to the kids, it's a little one-off joke because he's doing his cigarette tricks, right? After he's not really stopped the bank robbery, but says he stopped the bank robbery, but still when the knife is this long, as opposed to needs to move the chair in the office to show how long the knife is.
You ever get attacked by a man with a knife this big? Oh, yes, by a midget once. I was just like, God damn it,
he came at me with something this big. It was a razor blade.
I mean, dude, like, it's just so... And like you said, even the little things, like, I think one of the things I locked on that I thought was so funny this time was, I forget at what part in the movie, but he's going upstairs, but he goes up on the wrong side of the banister. Yeah. And he just goes, what am I doing to myself?
He's doing the cigarette, right? Where he's like shoving it in his nose, like his old vaudeville tricks. And at one point he goes, I'll show you this trick when you're older. I didn't smoke my first cigarette till I was 9. just.
I mean, dude, it's
so
he takes some good pratfalls in this movie too.
Oh yeah. And he does in like a lot of his movies. That's one of the things that you kind of appreciate about Fields is he understood who he was and what his energy was.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's this great bit in his last film that I'm forgetting the title of now.
I don't know, bro.
Whatever it is. His final
Never
film,
Give a Sucker an Even Break.
Thank you. Never Give a Sucker an Even Break, where he's falling. The premise is, I think he was in a plane and he falls out or something, and he lands on this bed, this round bed that they clearly put a trampoline under. And he's falling, right? They do a great bit of him just his round body falling in the sky. And just him in this odd position, just falling. And then he finally, not screaming or anything, and he finally hits the bed and bounces up, right? Which is a funny beat. And any other movie would just have him like, oh, the joke is not just that he falls on the bed. We'll add a little extra bit where he bounces off it once. But instead, he bounces off this thing like 5 times. And it's the Sideshow Bob stepping on the rake principle, where he hits the bed and bounces and goes, "Hurrah!" And you're like, that's funny. And then a second time, "Hurrah!" And you're like, uh-huh. Third time, all right. Fourth time, oh boy. Fifth time, you're cracking up again because it's just the reps. "Hurrah!"
Which is funny because it reminds me of another great bit in this one was when he's talking to his future son-in-law about robbing the money from the bank and saying, "You got to take risks." My uncle was 3.5 miles up in the sky, and he jumped out and he fell 3.5 miles, and
with the hope of falling into
into a haystack. Did he survive? Huh? Did he survive? Oh, no.
But then it's
maybe if he was a little younger, he would have survived.
Did he survive?
That's the point. Don't wait. Don't wait to live your life.
That's what it's the. Did you have no? But had he been a younger man, he might have.
I was just like,
it truly reminds me of. I did the Adult Swim comparison already, right? But it truly reminds me of Ryan. Are you a fan of Smiling Friends, the new Adult Swim show? It's out.
I have not seen it.
Oh, watch it. It's incredible. But there's this great bit where there's the two characters, and throughout the episode, one character just keeps describing the various car accidents his uncle has been in. He's like, my uncle got drunk behind the wheel and like crashed into a family. And then later, like, no, I gave him a bunch of sedatives. Will that knock him out? Absolutely. It knocked my uncle out before he just ran that car into a school. And the other character, and it's truly the same level of joke because the other character goes, "Your uncle gets into a lot of car accidents, Charlie." Yeah, he loves his cars. It's just like truly, even that, like almost 100 years later, like that's a W.C. Fields bit. That in and of itself is just a Fields bit,
I mean, listen, great comedy transcends the ages, bro.
And
I think that vaudeville shit just transcends because it's just really like, unless it's specifically about like a thing at the time, it's just wordplay or falling on your ass, and everybody loves that. I mean,
there's no adornment to it. That's the great thing about vaudeville and why it's so easily adaptable to film, is that you can add all this different garnish onto it and put it wherever you want, but the key idea will strike through.
And I think
absolutely.
One of the great things about vaudeville now, I'm really just turning into like the old man. I'm turning into Jimmy Durante in one of his movies because I don't know if you ever watched some early Jimmy Durante movies. They're just him talking about vaudeville, but
no,
and saying ha cha 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 cha.
Yeah, truly, just Tom. I'm sorry. Listen, you say no. Someday you're gonna watch a Jimmy Durante movie and be like, all right, I can fuck.
Am I?
Yeah. Well, I
is he in the registry?
I'm sure somewhere, and if not, what the fuck? We'll get on that. But anyway, the thing about vaudeville too is that. Bang Dick is a little less so than some of the others because vaudeville, the audiences were prepared for the fact that like you were going to get some comedy and you were going to get some drama and you were going to get some music, and you just showed up for a full bill of it, right? And you could have a little bit of everything. And, we talk a lot on this show about like entertainment getting so siloed, right? About kind of people just going and only watching one type of movie or only consuming one type of content, right?
Yeah.
And in those early, and I mentioned those early Fields films, but like there is something in there, people could discover something new, right? People could kind of find a new thing. Even Fields was not a comedian when he started out, right? Fields did get a start in vaudeville, but it wasn't doing comedy. W.C.
Wasn't
Fields,
he a juggler?
He was considered the world's greatest juggler. And that carries over into some of his films. If you watch The Old-Fashioned Way, there's an extended sequence of him juggling in that. And it's legitimately impressive. He was a phenomenal juggler. But because in vaudeville, you can't just do one thing, right? I mean, that's part of why the Marx Brothers were so successful, right? Is that you had somebody who could do everything, right? Harpo could do silent comedy and, physical shtick. Groucho had the jokes. Chico was doing the impersonations and the accents, and then Zeppo would sing, right? Fields was a juggler, but he would need to interject kind of little jokes into his routine, right? And especially if he screwed something up, he could do a joke. And slowly but surely, the jokes and the persona began to overtake the juggling itself, right?
I gotta say, it's so funny that an alcoholic was a juggler. That's just a funny, like, what's the one thing I don't want to do when I'm juggling something? Be drunk.
I
I
thought
mean-
you were going to say, what's the one thing you want to do when you don't want to do when drunk is juggle? And I was going to say, Tom, if that's the case, I've got a list for you of other things you shouldn't do.
Well, listen, I always want to juggle when I'm drunk. So that's one of the many things I have to get off my back one of these days, but that's a tale for another time. But just the idea of like, oh, I'm a professional juggler, all about hand-eye coordination and just physical reaction time. I'm gonna get fucking ripped.
But yes,
that's just funny. Even that's funny. W.C. Fields, you got a good bit. I'm gonna be a drunk juggler. Love it.
The other thing I do want to raise about this that I think is super interesting is, he's not, what I kind of love about the Bank Dick too is he's not, sometimes in some of his other films, he's kind of the comic relief, right? He's the, comic relief, and you have to center like the more normal characters. No one is normal in this movie.
Oh no.
Absolutely no one. The little girl who just can't wait to hit her father with things.
So funny.
The older daughter, who one of my favorite lines in the whole film is just when she comes down to the dinner table upset. My Sunday school teacher told me he saw my father coming out of a saloon the other day, and he was smoking a pipe. Oh, I'll kill myself. Just, this is such
I think I'll starve myself.
Yes.
I tried it yesterday afternoon.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no Margaret Dumont.
No.
It's literally everybody is Groucho.
Ironically, Margaret Dumont is in his last film.
Really?
Yes, she's
now I want to see it even more. Oh my god!
She plays the mother, this Russian mother in a hidden kind of Amazonia, who was so heartbroken by her divorce that she decided that her daughter should never know what a man is at all, and never encounter one. And W.C. Fields, when he falls out of a plane, falls out of the sky and into this young woman's bedroom. And he's the first time he's ever seen a man.
Imagine the first man you've ever seen is W.C. Fields.
Kind of ruined for men forever.
Well, that's just such a high watermark that nobody's ever going to measure up. I mean,
I won't.
That's already being at the top. That's like being born on third base. I don't know what, lucky girl, but also unlucky girl.
Tom,
because
the best part, I can't stress to you enough, he is so close to death at this point. He has almost no teeth. That is the other thing. Watching young W.C. Fields movies, like even W.C. Fields movies from the 30s, right? This movie comes out in 1940. Watching W.C. Fields movies from the 30s and then watching The Bank Dick, one of my notes is, Jesus Christ, he is so close to death here. Like, you're watching this, Tom, and I know this is the only thing you've seen of his, so you're like, oh, that's what W.C. Fields looks like. Go back to the old-fashioned way, or like The Fatal Glass of Beer, and then watch this and you go, oh my God.
And it's amazing that they started shooting in September of 1940, and it was out in November.
Yep.
And this man is 6 years away from croaking, and yet he could do that in 2 months? Are you kidding me? Oh my God. The stamina of that man. He should have been dead long before he was. I'm amazed he made it as long as he did.
A true king. A king of for all time. A real dude's rock fella. I love him so much. Honestly, I don't want to watch his old stuff now because I just want to keep this image in my head of what he is. I never want to see him not this.
I was looking up like what happened to some of the other people involved in this. This is going to be fun. So Una Merkel, who plays the older daughter, grows up and ends up becoming, amongst other things, the housekeeper in The Parent Trap. Like the original Parent Trap. The original. She is the housekeeper in Parent Trap, is Una Merkel from this film. Meanwhile, her love interest from the bank.
Yeah.
His final film role is the principal in the Ramones Rock and Roll High School.
Whoa.
Imagine you went Imagine you went from working with W.C. Fields in a movie, by the way, that Fields fought for him to get that role. The studio didn't want him, and Fields fought for him to get that role. Imagine you went from working with W.C. Fields to working with the Ramones.
Well, it's funny you talk
Or a giant person in a rat costume.
It's funny though that you brought up Dante before.
Yeah,
Fucking Dante directed fucking Rock and Roll High School, co-directed. That's amazing. I love that.
yeah, he's in that. I mean, that's kind of this, and by that point, Fields had seen his resurgence. He had. I took note of another thing that I thought was very interesting, because obviously we mentioned this is a Universal film, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to fault you here, Tom, if you didn't. In the scene where Fields is being kind of interrogated by the cops after he stops one of the bank robbers, right? Or doesn't stop him. Did anything sound familiar there?
I can't say that it did.
So this film has a little bit of original score, but it was a lot of Universal reusing other sound cues they had. The piece of scoring that is used in that scene was originally created for and used in Son of Frankenstein.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. I love it. W.C. Fields, man of great taste. Son of Frankenstein rules.
But I don't know. I there's so much about this, because we're talking about it, it's in the Criterion Collection, but also out of print.
Now
right?
I'm just wishing W.C. Fields got to meet Frankenstein. Abbott and Costello got to meet him. What if W.C. Fields met Frankenstein? Come on.
Well, he did die the same year that movie came out, so I think it would be he'd be probably on a ventilator. He wouldn't be doing so hot, but yeah, he could probably show up.
If only Universal got that idea a little before he died. W.C.
Shame
Fields,
on you, Universal, for not thinking about it earlier.
I see, Tom. I wanted him to be, if he had lived like 2 more years. Abbott and Costello met Frankenstein. They met the Mummy. They met a number of the different ones. I want old near-death W.C. Fields meeting the characters that they did not want Abbott and Costello to bother with. Like, Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. W.C. Fields meets the Leech Woman. Like
the giant mantis.
W.C. Fields meets the Black Cat.
W.C. Fields visits this island Earth.
W.C. Fields goes to the old dark house.
Now, hang on.
I
just made a better movie. You just made a better movie right now. Oh my god.
Hey, listen, I'm a man of ideas. I got ideas. I just need an outlet for them, baby. And a time machine.
We could do it now.
Oh god, I'm an
Tom,
idiot.
Would you go back and kill Baby Hitler? No, I would remake the old dark house, but I'd put W.C. Fields in it.
Well, listen here. A two for one thing. You remake the old dark house, but you get Baby Hitler and you crush its corpse in one of a big special effects scene.
Tom, counterpoint.
What?
Send W.C. Fields to kill Baby Hitler.
See, now we're cooking with gas. What are we
gonna do here? What do you say? How about we find some?
Probably shouldn't have said cooking with gas when talking about Hitler.
We put a little poison in a bratwurst for the little child. Is that what we do? What do you say? What do we do?
That's fuck. See, we got some good minds working here. We just need to get a time machine.
The next time, I hope by award season next year, I'm talking to people at some of these guild screenings, like, well, do you have any scripts in the works? Actually, my writing partner, Tom, and I, we have a number of scripts. What are they? W.C. Fields in this island Earth. W.C. Fields kills Baby Hitler. We have a number of scripts here. We have only one impediment, and that is that W.C. Fields has been dead for more than 50 years. But if we can figure out a workaround there, we are going to have a franchise.
Once we crack that equation, we'll be off. We'll be the next NFT craze. Send me to jail. I'm committing crimes to make W.C. Fields goes to Forbidden Planet.
Now, what the hell What the hell did Gort? What am I supposed to tell Gort? Claytu, Barata, Boondoggle? What am I supposed to say?
Himalaya. Imagine if he lived long enough to be one of those guys that like guest starred on like Star Trek. What if he? Oh, what was that fucking like the fat
Harry
gay
Mudd.
pirate?
Harry Mudd. Tom.
W.C. Fields is Harry Mudd.
Tom.
100%.
I hate that before all you had to say was
you knew exactly where I was
it's
going.
Harry Mudd. You mean Harry Mudd?
You knew exactly where I was going. W.C. Fields as Harry Mudd. If that happened, Star Trek wouldn't have been canceled in 3 seasons. The original show would still be running today.
I joked, for the listeners, if there are any left at this point, I joked beforehand my fear that this episode would turn into one of those Joe Dante and John Landis DVD double features that are just incoherent. I joked about that.
It happened.
We stumbled into that. Because there's, you know what? I don't know. I don't own all of his movies. I don't have those criterions. There is a chance that there is 20 minutes of Joe Dante and John Landis just pitching W.C. Fields in this island Earth. It's not impossible.
What if I killed W.C. Fields in a field in Vietnam? Take it easy, John.
I was just picturing, oh God, like that. Half this episode is just, what if W.C. Fields was in Colombo? Like that's all it is. That's all.
And the other half is Tom. And the other half is Tom telling the audience to go kill themselves on drugs.
Well, I mean, one thing that I think that's wild about this one in particular is like, so I do get the sense when it comes to this being in the registry, like something we talked about on what I assume is a previous episode. I assume it'll come before this. We recorded an episode on Detour, Ryan. You know, the noir film.
Yes, the Edgar Ulmer film.
Yes. We recorded an episode on that, and I was saying that, you know, this year of the National Film Registry, the 4th year, really does feel like there's an effort to be representative. And I don't mean that in like a cultural sense or anything like that, but that this really seems to be a year of, you know, the registry's been around for 3 years at this point. The first year is all just like the canonical classics. The second year, they're trying to expand it a bit. And this year, you really feel there are a number of instances where they're like, well, we have to get a blank in there. And I don't mean that to be critical of these works, right? In any stretch of the imagination, but it's like, you know, as opposed to a year where, like when we talked about Star Wars in our first season, right? You're like, when we kept just going like, well, because it's fucking Star Wars, right? It wasn't like they said, we have to get sci-fi in here or anything like that. But this year, you know, Detour gets in because it is a real effort on their part to go, we should represent the Poverty Row picture. We should validate the B movie, right? We should validate that. We haven't recorded it yet, but Big Business, the Laurel and Hardy short, gets in, right?
And as soon as you said that, I thought the Bette Midler, Lily Tomlin twin movie? That's weird. Wow.
But, you know, the Big Business gets in. Now, personally, right, if you were coming to me and you were like, well, what, you know, which Laurel and Hardy short would go in? I would go with The Music Box before that. Or there's a number of Laurel and Hardys.
Sons of the Desert.
And both of those get in later, right? I can't be against Big Business, right? But it is that feeling of like, it's almost like, I think if we all sat down, because there's only one in the registry, but like if you sat down to all three of us, if the Library of Congress called all of us up right now, which they would never do, they know we exist, and I think they hate that we exist. I'm kidding.
I think they have me on a watch list.
They were very nice to us via email, and as soon as I said to Tom that like somebody there has listened to the show, you just felt a moment of like, oh, that shouldn't. Oh no, they shouldn't be doing that.
Well, that feels like when you know that like you're doing like a fucking routine you saw in like when you were a kid, like, oh, I saw like Eddie Murphy routine and I'm doing this bit or Chappelle bit, and then you turn around and you see your parents were in the doorway the whole time and you're just like, oh god damn it.
But if the Library of Congress called us up and they went, fellas, there needs to be a Three Stooges short in the registry. None of us would disagree, but it'd be like, well, which one do you pick? Right? Like, we can all name like
Plumbing
favorites.
We Will Go.
Right, but that's
my pick.
But it's not like there's one definitive one. And I think that, the Bank Tick is certainly one of his masterworks in that regard. But like, it is one of those things of like, you also know that the conversation was like, do we do The Bank Dick, or do we do It's a Gift, or do we do My Little Chickadee, or do we do So's Your Old Man, or do we, it was like one of those kind of things. Same with Big Business. Like, it was like, we have to get a Laurel and Hardy in. So what do we do?
Right.
As opposed to like, like we did Annie Hall or Dog Star Man or one of those where it's like, obviously, if you're going to put a Woody Allen in, it's going to be Annie Hall. If you're going to put a Stan Brakhage in, it's Dog Star Man. Like, those are just gimmies,
Well, yeah, I mean, I definitely, like you said, you start noticing the branching of the criteria and what's getting in, and they definitely feel like, we're going to do a Chaplin movie next week.
Yes.
We're recording a Chaplin, The Gold Rush, next week. But, like, it's like, okay, we can't do Chaplin all the time.
Yeah.
Let's start getting, like you said, Laurel and Hardy. Let's get W.C. Fields in. I personally think there should be an Abbott and Costello every year of the Registry, but that's just me. Hey, I'm just a guy with an opinion. The right opinion, but that's neither here nor there.
As long as it's whodunit, then I'm okay with that. As long as we start with that one, then I'm good.
What's the one that I put in as my Registry pick?
You
5 minutes
motherfucker.
before.
Here come the co-eds.
Hell yeah. Those co-eds, they're coming.
Really?
So Ryan, let me explain why this happened. Because when we were doing our episode on The Freshman, the Harold Lloyd college comedy, we got to the point where we were supposed to do our nominations for the National Film Registry, and Tom goes, fuck, give me a minute.
I forgot to do it.
Yeah, he forgot that we end the show picking films to submit to the National Film Registry. Now, Ryan...
It's not that I forgot that we do it. I just forgot to do the work.
Now, Ryan, I'm sure you're sitting there going, that's understandable. That was probably like your second, third episode. And the answer is, it was our 34th.
Was it really?
Tom, it was in season 2, and it was like the middle of season 2, I think. Recording-wise.
I was having a bad time back then.
Tom,
okay.
at the barest of minimums, right? By virtue of being in season 2, and I know it wasn't the first one we recorded, at the lowest, it was the 26th one of those we'd done.
All right, but that was
at
a
the
bad
least.
time for me. It's all right.
In any event, that got us off track. But I was just trying to, I'm trying to, like, the element of the W.C. Fields of it all, right? We all love the Bank Dick, right? But it is also the element of he is just such a titanic persona for a certain era of film, right? Especially because, think about it, we don't think of W.C. Fields in the silent era, but he certainly did work in the silent era, from some of those early shorts to So's Your Old Man, and he made the transition. The early days of talking comedy are ostensibly dominated by W.C. Fields, the Marx Brothers, Mae West. Chaplin is still making comedies around this time, right? But he's still making silent comedies until
he's
Monsieur
slow to
Godot.
approach the talkie fully. Like, you have something like Modern Times, which has elements of that.
Yeah.
But he's not there yet.
The Great Dictator, similarly. But he's building to that. And a lot of people can't keep up. We mentioned Jimmy Durante before. Obviously, Buster Keaton, the previous Edward F. Klein star, gets kind of shunted over into two-handers with Jimmy Durante that are semi-successful. I think, having watched a couple of them, I think people are too harsh on those, right? I think people write them off completely. There's still some stuff. There's still some stuff in there for some of them. But Fields really does carry that in this era where comedy, where the talkie comedy is just starting to find its footing. He's a significant figure in that. And again, we talked about him in the DNA of Looney Tunes. We talked about him in the DNA of, he's imitated a lot in, even the early Disney cartoons. I don't remember what the hell it's called. There's one where, like, the Disney characters are playing polo against a bunch of, like, Hollywood caricatures, because at the time Walt Disney really liked polo, and then he suffered a terrible polo injury.
It's better than liking polio.
Well,
and then getting polio.
That's, you would think, Ryan, but here's the thing: his polo games did claim lives. I'm not joking. Polo killed a lot of people. It's kind of insane. Walt Disney and W.C. Fields, the one thing they have in common is you hear stories about both of them where you're like, how did you make it as long as you did? Neither one of you seem to have regards for your own personal safety at all.
That's the thing. Alcohol, it loosens the body up, and you can survive a lot of nasty things.
That is, I mean, truly to the point where, like, I don't drink anymore. But Ryan, have you been to California Adventure in Disneyland?
Oh, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So you know how at the Carthay Circle restaurant, they make a big deal out of like, well, we have Walt's favorite drink, the Scotch Mist, right?
Right.
They have this. Have you ever tried the Scotch Mist?
No, I'm a recovering alcoholic.
Excellent. I mean, I feel you there. But we were there, and I was like, let me just try this. It's Walt's favorite drink, Scotch Mist. And I texted Tom when this happened. And it's one of the few things Tom responded to positively about a theme park trip is I said, I just ordered Walt's favorite cocktail. And I cannot stress to you enough how much this is just straight Scotch with a little bit of seltzer. This is just an excuse to pour yourself straight Scotch. I mean, was listen, very shocked.
I love trying to class it up, but at the same time, just go for the Scotch, baby.
But that is kind of like...
Don't mess with what works,
But that is, it is that funny thing, and Fields does it too, right? It's this thing of, and I think it's that post-prohibition thing. There is an effort to kind of like the pretense of classy drinking, right? The rituals that go into it to try and separate oneself from just wanting to get trashed. Like one of the things I love that Fields does in this film is when he orders the shot and the chaser, and he's just dipping his fingers in the water.
Yeah.
Right?
This is such a weird thing.
Yeah. Well, because Fields in his own life is quoted as saying, I never drink water because fish fuck in it. That was one of his lines.
I mean, he's not wrong. You got to give the man the credit. He's not wrong. That's where they fuck.
I don't remember which film it is, but
they don't go to a Radisson.
I don't remember which film of his it is, but there's one film where there's a bit where he gets a glass of water out of a water cooler and he goes to drink it, and it's like he has hydrophobia. He just picks up pure water for once and just starts going, like he can't bring himself to drink something that isn't booze. It's kind of incredible.
I mean, I again cannot state enough. This is my guy.
I mean, that's kind of there's so many great bits. We talked about in the movie scene, where the daughter pops up, turns to the mom. Should I bounce a rock off his head, Ma? Respect your father, darling. What kind of rock? Yeah.
What kind of rock?
Or even at the end, Tom, you mentioned him getting the mansion, and then oh my God, when he walks out and the mother-in-law goes, "What a changed man! You had to do a lot of work." Oh, it's you deserve a lot of credit to the wife. She deserves a lot of credit that he's a changed man because he got money from the beefsteak mine.
From the beefsteak mine, from the bank, from the cops
deal.
For the bounty, and then the movie deal. Literally, that's why it's so literally everything. Everyone just ends the movie saying, "Here's money." Mm-hmm. More money than you'll ever know what to do with from 4 different people. The best.
And we have not even... Do you realize we've been going for like over an hour and we've not even talked about the extended sequence with Jay Pinkerton Snoopington and him just trying to get him hammered?
Yes.
And him trying to get him roofied. Because that's the whole thing. When he goes to the bar and he goes, "Oh, is my friend Michael Finn in?" Because of a Mickey Finn.
Yes.
It's or the extended bit where Fields calls in his fake doctor, right? Or his like shady doctor. And the doctor is going, you'll be recovered in 3 days. And Fields starts putting up his fingers for 4. And he's like, "Yes, I say I'll come back here and you'll be, better in 3 days." And Fields like, 4. "Yes, I say 3 days time." To the point where Fields just golf swings into a lamp and yells 4.
3 days, unless of course there are complications. I love when you meet the doctor and he's talking to that drunk we saw earlier in the movie, and he's just like, "You need to cut out health foods." It's just like, it's just, come on, that's just funny.
There
Or
is-
when he's walking the accountant into the bar and is this bar crowded? Oh no, if it wasn't for me, this place would be shuttered.
Well, there's the bit when he walks out his first day on the job as a bank detective. If people listening to this have not seen this movie, we have not conveyed the plot, but whatever. Go rent it.
There is no plot.
Yeah, go rent it.
Just watch.
His
Just
first-
watch the movie, you lazy Gen Z bums. It's not on TikTok, but there's other internet avenues for you. You fucking
But be
not
aware-
having sex losers.
But be aware, because I understand you'll have similar views as the elder daughter. There is drinking and smoking in this, and that may upset you. You may want to starve yourself for one day.
But but to be fair, for that time, what he's doing is the equivalent of drinking Prime and vaping.
Well, now I just pictured Twitch streamer WC Fields. What up, fam?
He's he's just down in purple drink.
What up?
Like and subscribe.
What do we think about this, chat? This the whole time.
All the bits with a hat in the movie.
The hat. Oh my god. The fucking another dumb bit is when the banker has the cut open top of his hat during the one scene with unfortunate racism.
Oh, so it's so shocking.
Yeah.
You as the audience member react the way W.C. Fields reacts when that black character shows up. You're just like, holy fuck, they're doing it. Oh my god.
Yeah, well, because you don't react that way. Black guy shows up in the movie, right? And you're like, oh. Yeah. And then W.C. Fields goes, huh! And then you as the audience go, oh no, oh shit.
Yep.
Oh, you're doing this. Yep. Oh no.
Oh, they're doing it. They're doing it. Oh god. Oh fuck.
Yeah, there's like little bits of racism.
And he has the voice.
Yeah.
And we don't even really need to describe it. Like,
yeah, he's doing that performance that you assume what that is. Listening to this right now, that's what he's doing.
Yep.
That's what he's doing.
So Fields, so when they're talking to the bank teller, and the bank teller has the top of his straw hat cut open, right? And the guy's like, "Well, I don't understand why you've got your hat cut open like that." And he goes, "Oh, it's on the count of I have hay fever." He's allergic to his hat, so he thinks if he cuts the top off, he won't sneeze.
I love when he gets hired at the bank and the guy goes, "Oh, what time do you open? 10. Oh, that's okay. If I don't show up on time, you can start without me. I'll catch up."
And then, the fucking bit later when he's talking to the bank teller, he's like, "I'm going to appear here. I've got several disguises. If you recognize me, do this hand motion. If you don't,
not like this. Don't do it like that. It'll be too obvious. A little lower. And if you don't recognize me, well, you won't know anything to do."
But I was trying to say, so then when he walks out and he sees the kid with the gun.
And he attacks the kid.
And then the best exchange when he goes, "Is that thing loaded?" And the mother goes, "No, but I think you are." And they walk out. And
no. Next time he comes in there, I'm going to shove him in this trash can. I'm just like, yes, more kids need to be attacked by adults in comedies. I swear to God, it's honestly, I could be watching the dirt-ass worst comedy in the world. Like, I saw Under the Silver Lake at Fantastic Fest like 7 years ago or whatever, and I didn't like the movie, but Andrew Garfield just starts roundhouse punching kids and just rocking them, and I was laughing my fucking ass off. It's so goddamn funny when adults attack kids. I'm sorry. I have to live my truth.
And then the bit... So, the other thing we should note, mildly touch on at least, is that Fields reuses a lot of the same actors, right? In fact, if you watch a number of Fields comedy, I'm sure, Ryan, you saw this when watching a bunch of them, like, you recognize the faces, right?
Yeah.
Everyone from, J. Pigman Snoopington and the son and the daughter, they all reappear, right? The blonde woman that he tries to flirt with in the bank office, right? When she walks in and he's getting scolded by his boss, but he's just more interested in trying to hit on the blonde woman. She's only got one other movie, and it's her popping up in My Little Chickadee, threatening to fight W.C. Fields.
I thought she looked familiar.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes. So, Tom, just to be clear, at some point in My Little Chickadee, he becomes the town sheriff.
I mean, I'm sold. Listen, I'm sold.
He becomes the town sheriff, but would rather be a bartender.
Listen, I get it. I would rather be a bartender than be a cop. Who wouldn't? If you're not, a white nationalist.
It's truly crazy. But yes.
See, that's the thing, man. Like, I wish, because there's I'm looking at the Blu-ray.com WC Fields section. Like, he's got a bunch of his movies are on Blu-ray, and I wish I knew. I wish I saw this before I did my super depressed Kino Lorber sale purchase where I bought way too many movies. But at this, I wish I watched it. So I went oh, WC Fields, they've got a bunch of a bunch of his stuff in the Kino Lorber section, and I would have got. But I also at the same time, I just wish there was a box set.
Yeah, I know that. I feel
one purchase, even if it's not all WC Fields, which would be just not feasible, but 5 or 6 of the best.
Yeah,
give me one with the bank dick, with the chickadee.
It's a gift,
never give us Yeah, just give me a nice little round little number, 5, 6, something like that. I don't know, but just make it easy. One purchase, boom, and then I've got some WC Fields to throw in between my spaghetti westerns and kung fu pictures and other nonsense I watch.
Now, I did want to point out one other thing. I forgot to note this earlier. I did forget to this earlier. The guy who recruits W.C. Fields to direct the film, right?
Mm-hmm.
The guy who recruits him was the first actor to ever play Captain America. Just felt like that was, in the old 1940s serials. He was the first guy to play Captain America.
That's cool.
Which, again...
also feel like
Were you about to say W.C. Fields should have played Captain America?
Well, listen, he should have played Captain America. He should have played the Incredible Hulk.
That's also, you know what?
Fing Fang Foom.
It's a worthwhile question. We're in a weird time for the MCU. They're doing a lot of multiverse stuff. If W.C. Fields were to play any Marvel character in the MCU, we're recasting here. Who do you put?
MODOK.
I mean, shit. I would watch W.C. Fields. Tom, how much better is Quantum Mania? If rather than it being Corey Stoll, they're just well, I have MODOK here. Who's MODOK? What do you see? What do you say? Well.
And it would have been better if instead of fucking Scott having a reaction to it, it's Michael Douglas, and you go, oh my God, Michael Douglas has a history with W.C. Fields.
MODOK stands for mechanical organism designed only for Kettle One vodka.
What if he was Ultron? Oh no, Whiplash. Someone even more unhinged than Mickey Rourke.
Oh, I've got my bird here, Mr. Stark, you see.
I like birdies. Usually I like them when they got 2 legs and the blonde hair, but I take birds when I can get them. What the fuck is this episode? God.
It's so funny because we always say our modus operandi for any episode is, if you watched one of these films in the registry and you don't understand why it's so important, we're going to help you understand. And our entire energy for this episode has been,
it's like the bank dick.
And if you don't like W.C. Fields, fuck you. That's been the
whole. If you don't like W.C. Fields, I got some fentanyl for you.
Okay, the only other thing I really want to acknowledge, because we're talking about Fields and we're talking about his place in history. Fields was 100% an envelope pusher, right? Which needs to be talked about. I mean, even the name of the saloon, the cafe.
The Black Pussy.
Right. So you'll notice that on the name of the place, it says the Black Pussy Cat, right?
Yeah, but they only say Black Pussy.
He wanted it to be called the Black Pussy. The censors made him call it the Black Pussy Cat. So they basically relented by going, that's what we'll paint on the sets. But we will never call it that in the movie. They just call it the Black Pussy.
And there are multiple shots where all you can see is the word pussy.
Yes.
Backwards.
Yes. Yeah, we love it.
It's unbelievable.
Well, there's so many. I mean, I was telling Tom, Ryan, in his final film, right? The second to last scene is his character going to an ice cream parlor, right? And he sits down at the counter at the ice cream parlor, and then W.C. Fields looks directly into the camera, talks to the audience for the first time in this whole movie, and just goes, "This scene was supposed to take place in a saloon, but the censors wouldn't let us do that, so I hope this works fine in itself." And then does the rest of the scene. He just looks directly into camera and tells the audience what they had to censor out. It's kind of
That's
incredible.
Brilliant.
What a man.
Brilliant.
What a fucking man.
I mean,
Oh
I
my God.
think at the end of the day, I mean, we're all enjoying W.C. Fields. We're all enjoying laughing about it. But, like, it's because there's really, Fields is a fundamental part of the evolution of film comedy and the evolution of film, right? Now, again, we could quibble about, do you put in The Bank Dick or It's a Gift or My Little Chickadee or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, when you think back and you take into account the Registry's real purpose, right? Which is not to be a greatest movies or whatever. And it's more about, like, preserving our cinematic heritage.
Yeah.
I sometimes try and think of it in terms of, like, if every private collection of film suddenly burst into flame, right?
Oh God, don't say that.
What do you need to rebuild and to understand our cinematic history, to understand how we got here, right? And Fields is a fundamental part of that, I mean, to the point where, and I think part of the reason maybe that it has an impact that we don't realize is, I guarantee you, when we were children, every one of us had an interaction with an elder person in our family. I'm talking like maybe not necessarily a grandparent, but of that generation tier, a great uncle or whatever at a family reunion. Every one of us had an interaction with somebody of that age when we were a kid who 100% stole W.C. Fields bits and did them for us, right? I know sure as hell, and Tom, you've met my grandfather. So that man not only did a bunch of W.C. Fields bits for me when I was a kid, but sold them like a motherfucker. And when you're like 6 years old, you're like, well, this is the funniest man on the planet. Where does he get it from?
And when you're 33 years old, you go, that's the funniest man on the planet. I don't know where he gets it from.
But, did anybody have anything else they wanted to add on The Bank Dick, the general concept of it before we wound down?
No.
So with
tight 72-minute runtime, love that. Saw Abigail last night. Could have been a tight 70. Would have been a lot better if it was just the Corman or William Castle era of just like, here's a horror movie, here's a concept, we kidnap the vampire, get to it. They take 45 minutes to reveal that she's a vampire. I'm just like, seems like a miscalculation, but okay. Give me more tight 70s. Maybe a tight 80 if I'm feeling generous.
It really is. I mean, but in any event, with that in mind, Tom, how do you think The Bank Dick fared at the Academy Awards that year?
0 nominations.
That is correct. The Best Picture nominees that year, and this is fitting because one of them involves somebody we were just discussing. The Best Picture nominees that year were All This in Heaven 2, Foreign Correspondent, The Grapes of Wrath, The Great Dictator, Kitty Foyle, The Letter, The Long Voyage Home, Our Town, The Philadelphia Story, and the winner, Rebecca. I bring that up for two reasons. One, obviously, we were talking about Chaplin, right? And W.C. Fields, his second to last film, basically, one of his final films, comes about. This man has made a number of sound comedies. Comes about in the same year that Charlie Chaplin is going, fucking fine, I will talk in a movie. Isn't that kind of wild to think about? Like, Isn't that kind of nuts? We're
Had to be dragged kicking and
Yeah.
screaming into the sound era. 13, 12 years into the sound era. It's like,
Yeah.
fucking fine.
Yeah.
You little fucking babies. I'll make it with sound.
But even more so, at the top, I was talking about the difference between kind of like cerebral comedy and sort of more surreal, silly comedy, right? Highbrow and lowbrow comedy, right? It's a little bit. Tom and I often joke, even though let's be honest, pull back the curtain a bit. Tom and I we did not grow up with radically different socioeconomic circumstances. But if you listen to this show or you listen to the way we describe each other,
you would think Mike grew up in like a penthouse in Manhattan, and that I grew up in a garbage can in Brooklyn.
You would think that we are literally like Stan and Kenny on South Park, that we are on opposite sides of the literal tracks, right? But in any event, part of that is the fact that, like, when you think about, look at the major, we're talking about The Bank Dick now, and Tom is like, this is my shit, right?
Yeah, baby.
Bank Dick is not nominated for Best Picture. It's a lowbrow comedy, right? It's an alcohol comedy. The character's name is an old term slang for being trashed, right? But The Philadelphia Story is nominated for Best Picture. There is a comedy in the Best Picture conversation, but it's about the romantic entanglements of rich people, right? Can you think of a broader comedy spectrum than Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn, and Jimmy Stewart on one end, and W.C. Fields on the other, right?
Which is just the way he liked it, man.
Precisely.
That he would love that. Oh my god.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much for coming back.
Thank you,
on
buddy.
The show. We really
thank you for
appreciate
having me.
We're happy to do it. Always enjoy having you on, and especially when we get to kind of dive deep in the sides of cinema that are otherwise not discussed much, which I really appreciate. So if you have things to plug, which I know you do, please plug away. Tell the folks where to find you, what to check out, and so on and so forth.
Sure. So I have 2 podcasts. The one that takes up the most of my time is One Track Mind, which is a podcast where we discuss audio commentaries. We do not do commentaries themselves. That would be somebody else. Instead, it's the best movie podcast about commentaries because it's the only one that actually exists. And every week we have a guest and we talk about a movie in relation to its audio commentary. Mike has been on once before. We'll be on again. We did Donnie Darko. Did we mention this during the show?
We mentioned Donnie Darko up top because I think I misunderstood the show. You invited me on and you were like, it's to talk about like a film commentary track that like really stands out to you. And I was like, I know what stands out to me. The worst commentary track of all time. And I truly did not realize that was not what you were looking for until we finished recording and you went, cool. And I'd love to have you back on, hopefully for something you like this time. And that was the only time I realized, like, oh, I was supposed to come on and be like, some interesting points are raised on this commentary instead of, this made me hate this movie.
Well, amazingly enough, when I started the podcast, it was going to be bad audio commentaries or audio commentaries about bad movies. Mm-hmm. So you have actually brought the entire thing full circle.
Boom.
And then the other podcast that I do is
Why
Reels
did you do
of
that
Justice.
for Boom?
I was like, because he was saying it was Boom. Tom, because it was full circle. I'm bringing it full circle.
But a Boom doesn't do this. A Boom does this. You fucking idiot.
Or this. This is also a boom.
All about the boom. Well, unless you jump off a ramp 3 feet and then your foot goes boom.
Tom. Ryan is not one of the Reels of Justice hosts who cares about wrestling. This is not going to work here. I learned this the hard way. I tried to play to that. I didn't remember who followed it and who didn't. It was a whole... I think it's why I lost a case, quite frankly. With that as a segue, Ryan, please plug your other show.
Yes, Reels of Justice is a fake movie court where we have a prosecutor, a defender, a judge, and a jury, and we try to conclude whether or not a movie is guilty of being a bad movie. Mike has, of course, defended 2 movies that were bad and won. Mm-hmm. I've already forgotten which one you won. Was it The Lone Ranger?
So, Wild Wild West and The Mummy lost. I won for The Lone Ranger.
Which you won because you talked about the train chase.
That is truly
that sold me 100% on your argument.
My opening argument was just going, aren't trains cool? And it worked. It fucking worked. So God bless it.
What are you, a fucking citizen in San Francisco in 1892?
What, Tom? Go back and listen to the episode. It was truly like my opponent was basically trying to argue the movie is racist. The choice to cast Johnny Depp is racist. The movie is racist, sexist, offensive. Sir, I mean, the fact this should be brought up before The Hague, and then when it's my turn, I just go, trains are fucking cool, right? Isn't it cool when trains go fast? And sometimes they're on the rails, and sometimes they fall off. And the the trains. And that worked. So word of advice for any people appearing on the show in the future.
I would have
Aim
put
for a
you in
train.
contempt of court.
See, that's the thing, Ryan. You should know. I at least came on and defended the film. Tom, if he was ever brought into the Reels of Justice court, it would be like The Dark Knight. And by that, I mean he would pull a gun out in the middle of the court and point it at someone's head. Like, that's where it would go. Remember when Harvey Dent pulls a gun on someone in court? You guys remember that?
No, someone pulls a gun on him,
and then he
takes
turns it around.
the gun away from him, and
Buy
he punches
American.
him in the face.
Oh, but doesn't he say next time, buy American? Right?
Yeah, he disarms the gun, goes up to Maroney and says, next time,
right.
buy American.
Yeah,
because I'm...
What if
too obsessed
W.C.
with that
Fields
movie.
was Harvey Dent?
Listen, hey, we can make the joke ones, but what if W.C. Fields was the Penguin?
I
mean, isn't he?
He is. He basically
Isn't he just basically Oswald Cobblepot? Just like, I mean, he's close enough. He's definitely there.
He should be Colin Farrell's Penguin's father.
Oh, hell, ratalada. Oh. Ryan, thank you so much for being here. Everybody else, stick around. We'll be right back with our picks for the National Film Registry.
Great as always. So good, I'm going to forget we ever did it.
The National Film Registry isn't some fixed object, frozen in time. It's always growing, adding new titles every year. These annual selections are made by the National Film Preservation Board, with members like Martin Scorsese, Alfre Woodard, and Leonard Maltin, and representatives from organizations like the Academy, the DGA, and the AFI coming together to debate and decide. But they don't just pull titles out of thin air. They pull from the public, people like you and us, who can submit their nominations for the registry in a form on the Library of Congress's website. What we do, at the end of each episode, is have Mike and Tom pick films not yet in the registry that they feel should be, inspired by that day's topic. At the end of each season, those films will be formally submitted to the National Film Registry for consideration, on behalf of You're Missing Out. Here are today's picks.
Alright, so with my pick, few options, avenues you could have went down. I decided to follow my heart and go with a pick where you could go with the fat, drunken, stoner, shithead avenue, and because this has a little bit of a crime element to it, and it ends in a car chase, so an action scene, I decided to go to an old standby of mine, one of my favorite guys to throw into this registry. I am going with Pineapple Express from David Gordon Green. I think Danny McBride is a good companion to the W.C. Fields shtick. Seth Rogen is as well, but I think McBride has that sort of edge, that darker edge that Fields likes to play in, and a little bit more wordplay and just weird like line deliveries. Like, W.C. Fields. It's not in the Pineapple Express, but W.C. Fields would have had a fucking field day watching Uncle Baby Billy. And not only just the words put together, Uncle Baby Billy, but in season 3, when they get to Uncle Baby Billy's Bible Bonkers, he would have lost his goddamn mind at the fact that, they found the perfect sequences of words to be the funniest thing anyone has ever said. And he probably would have given them the note, say it more. So you get shit like that with McBride stuff in there, and Rogen's got his similar thing, and it's got that, like, shaggy dog, drunken stoner, like stumbling into a crime thing, and they're not criminals, but they get involved and they got to get out, and hijinks ensue. This one gets to take it a little further than Fields does because people get fucking murdered. Not McBride, who keeps dying 3 times but surviving until he passes out at the diner, and they go, "Is Red dead?" But nope, he's not dead. Yeah, just little things like that, I think, would make it a good companion piece to the Bank Dick. There's a lot of choices that I thought could have gone with this, but I'm going to try to exhaust every David Gordon Green movie by the time we're through with season 5 of this show. So I had to get another one out. So I'm picking Pineapple Express. I think W.C. Fields would have approved, and I think it would be a good little double bill if you ever wanted to do such a thing at home, or if you know somebody at the Alamo Draft House that you can blackmail into doing your bidding.
Next year, Tom's just going, Blade Runner's a lot like Manglehorn. It's just try it.
See, you think I won't try to make that argument, but I'll figure it out by then.
Oh, goodness. So one of the things I was thinking about with W.C. Fields when we were discussing this is the fact that you're inducting the Bank Dick, which is a phenomenal comedy, but you're also inducting it to be representative of W.C. Fields. And as we discussed with W.C. Fields, the Three Stooges, Laurel and Hardy, it's really a question of, well, how do you pick one, right? Because they had such incredibly perfected comedic personas that in a manner that nowadays, or even back then, sometimes was mainly true of cartoon characters, right? You didn't expect them to behave differently. You're just like, well, what's Bugs Bunny going to do in this situation, right? That was W.C. Fields. That was Laurel and Hardy. That was those guys. And I was trying to think of, okay, today we don't really have that. We have comedic actors, but we expect them to transform, right? We expect them to play different roles and do different kind of things. I was trying to think of a recent example of maybe the last time somebody, at least in American cinema, had a comedic persona that really didn't shift that much. That we were just like, yes, I want to see them do this thing now. That it didn't matter if the characters' names changed. You were like, I know what I'm getting here. Right? And there's one. There's one who has had such an impact on cinema of its day and is an acquired taste. Don't get me wrong. Much like what the registry statement says about Fields is an acquired taste, but has to be represented in the registry in some way. I think for Gen X and millennials, our W.C. Fields is Adam Sandler, right? The voices he does, the shtick that he does, everybody can imitate it, right? Everybody can do his little jabaloo and all that stuff. That, I think, if you're not of the generation that found that funny, you can't explain it. If we were to do an episode on an Adam Sandler movie, it would be very similar to what our episode today was, which is you can't really break down why Stop Looking at Me, Swan is funny, right? You can't really break down why Punching Bob Barker is funny. You kind of just have to go like, yeah, you get it, right? You can talk about the importance, but the humor can't be broken down. It's not a science. So you have to have a Sandler in there at some point. And many people talk about the Bank Dick as kind of his masterwork, the one where he gets to kind of really shine. He's not playing a supporting role, all of that. He has full creative control. I think when you talk to people about Sandler, some people, Tom and I were discussing this off mic once, that he's more of a Happy Gilmore guy. I'm more of a Billy Madison guy. But, when you set aside things like the Punch Drunk Love, the Rain Over Me, the Uncut Gems, the real serious ones, even before all that, Sandler was divisive. People could say they hated Sandler, but the one you always heard from people, which I think makes it the quintessential Sandler film, even if it doesn't go as far as some of the others, the one you hear from everybody is The Wedding Singer. 1998's The Wedding Singer is the one that everybody goes, yeah, but that works. That one, okay, I like that one. It's where all of his little trademarks and tricks are used to their best. It's one of the great rom-coms of the 90s, quite frankly. The Grow Old With You sequence on the plane is great, but so is the Somebody Kill Me Please musical number. And I do think that the other thing about it, setting aside the Sandler of it all, and the connection to the bank dick, and the connection to Fields, I think the other reason that The Wedding Singer is significant is that, in a way, it's sort of the one great comedy to do 80s nostalgia, right? And 80s kind of, what do you want to call it? 80s self-reflection that does not fall into navel-gazy self-congratulations, right? We've been dealing with, strangely, a couple decades worth of 80s retread, and boy, remembered the 80s, and weren't the 80s funny, and all of that, and they all feel a little pat. But the bits still land in this one, It still holds up. And, I just think you have to represent Sandler's contribution to cinema. He's very much a Fieldsian figure in that regard. Probably, Tom alluded to Belushi on the show and alluded to Farley, right? And obviously, in the archetype way, those are closer. But I think Sandler is the closest thing we have to a Fieldsian figure in terms of just divisive acquired taste who nonetheless either evolved or arguably broke comedy for a period of time and made a movie star career out of it. So I nominate The Wedding Singer from 1998 to the National Film Registry.
Next week,
we're giving our audio listeners a taste of what we're doing exclusively on YouTube as we give you the audio of Tom's franchise recap of the Mad Max series. Then join us in 2 weeks for our audio commentary for 1925's The Big Parade here on your podcast feeds, or watch the film along with us only on YouTube.
You're Missing Out is a production of Neon Night Media. It's hosted by Mike Natale and Tom Lorenzo. The show is produced by Kyle Lampar and edited by Mike Natale and Kyle Lampar. More information about our hosts and guests are in the show notes. Thank you to Amanda Rush for our social media, and all of you for checking us out.
If you're listening right now or want to take the show on the go, every episode is available as an audio podcast. Follow You're Missing Out at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you hear, please leave a review and a rating. It helps folks find the show.
Want to watch the show or watch some of the films along with us? Great, that's why we're doing this. Don't leave us alone out here. Check out our YouTube channel. We've got video versions of every episode, uploads of some of the National Film Registry titles we're discussing, commentary tracks, and live streams. And once a month, I'll be uploading some content that's exclusive to the YouTube channel. So be sure to click subscribe and hit that little bell to be notified as soon as new stuff goes up. Because, let's be fucking real, I ain't sticking to a goddamn schedule.
So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
And we'll see you next time.
And you'll see us next time. Because we don't watch you, you're watching us.